The galaxy had changed in 200 years, and it had become calm and quiet and peaceful in most sectors, and even the outer rims were mostly stable now, with fewer threats than ever before, and peace had become normal for many alien races who had grown soft and confident in the quiet silence that surrounded them. The memory of humans had faded with time, and their war was now just a history lesson, something children learned and then forgot. And while old veterans remembered the fear and power the humans once carried, the younger generations laughed when the topic of Earth came up, and their laughter echoed in council halls and diplomatic meetings as leaders made jokes about the extinct emotional creatures that once dared to fight the galaxy. The official records said Earth was destroyed, and no signals have been heard since, and no ships have been seen, and no colonies had responded to long-range scans, and it was accepted as fact that humans were gone, and the few remaining human bloodline colonies scattered on forgotten moons were ignored by major powers, and sometimes even bullied by nearby species who saw them as weak and unimportant. But something had changed in the deep corners of space, far beyond the major trade routes, beyond the reach of daily patrols and politics. Strange ships had begun to appear, ships that were fast and dark and silent, and moved like ghosts between the stars, and one by one small listening posts started going dark, and no distress calls were sent, no wreckage was found, only silence remained. In one case, a major alien freighter traveling near Sector 9 picked up strange readings. Ahead, a shadow moving, without transponder, without signal, without sound, and within moments the power of the freighter went down, its engines died, its systems crashed, and the crew screamed into comms. But no message reached anyone, and minutes later the entire crew vanished without trace, leaving only an empty, drifting ship behind. When the Galactic Council reviewed the case, they laughed and blamed pirates or black market tech thieves, saying no real threat existed and no reason to worry, and they issued a brief notice to increase patrols and close the file like all the others that had come before. But not everyone believed it was that simple. On the far side of the council chamber, an old Terran general leaned forward, staring at the report with cold eyes, and his claws tapped the table slowly as he watched the footage of the freighter going dark and the strange static that followed. And though no image showed clearly, something deep in the signal patterns made him feel something he had not felt in centuries. He leaned toward the screen and whispered words no one else wanted to say out loud. "This is not pirates. This is not a mistake. This is human." Elsewhere across the galaxy, more reports began to arrive, ships going missing, signals fading, unknown vessels spotted near abandoned human colonies, always gone before proper scans could be taken, and always without a word or sound or explanation. And soon rumors began to spread on lower channels and unofficial networks, the kind of places where smugglers and exiles talk in whispers. They said the humans were back. They said the silence was over. They said humanity had waited and watched and remembered every insult, every joke, every lost soul. And now they were moving again, and their ships were not like before, and their silence was not weakness, but patience sharpened over generations. In one port city, an alien merchant claimed to have seen one of the new human ships up close, docked in the shadow of a gas giant, and he swore its hull was black like obsidian, and it made no sound even as it moved, and that it looked almost alive with faint pulses running through the metal like a heartbeat. He tried to sell the information to a local enforcer and was found dead. The next day, his data logs wiped clean and his ship gutted from within. In the capital hub of the Galactic Council, another meeting was held to discuss the rumors, and again most members laughed, saying fear was spreading like a virus, and that humans were extinct and nothing more than ghost stories made to scare young diplomats. But the old Terran general spoke again, and his voice was rough with age and warning, and he looked each member in the eye and told them they had made a mistake 2 centuries ago when they let pride decide the fate of Earth, and they had forgotten the strength that came not from numbers or weapons, but from desperation and loss, and the kind of pain only humans could carry without breaking. They did not listen. They never do. And so the galaxy kept turning, and the quiet peace held a little longer, but in the shadows of the void, ships moved with purpose and speed and cold silence. And in the deepest parts of forgotten space, where no stars shine bright, a fleet was gathering with no flags, no names, no broadcasts, just a quiet signal pulsing in the dark like a heartbeat rising, and a message written in old human code. We remember. And in the outer rim, a scout station picked up the signal, and at first thought it was interference or static from a storm, but then it moved and changed direction and locked onto their coordinates with perfect precision, and suddenly all systems began to flicker as the signal grew stronger and louder and sharper, and one terrified technician screamed as the screen flashed once and then went dark. A single line of text remained. "We are coming." The scout station floated quietly above a frozen moon, orbiting a dead star forgotten by most charts and unmanned for years, until recently reactivated for monitoring unusual traffic along distant trade lines. Its crew was small and bored, mostly watching empty space and ignoring minor system glitches until that night, when everything changed. It started with a whisper, not a sound, but a vibration, a strange rhythm pulsing through the station's metal walls like a heartbeat, something ancient and familiar, but none of them could explain why it felt that way. They checked the systems, nothing showed an error, but the lights flickered gently and the air turned cold. Technician Marin checked the sensors again and again, blinking fast as the readings jumped between static and something solid, something moving faster than anything should, and then it vanished off-screen, replaced by a single code string written in old Earth programming, one that hadn't been used in over 200 years, and yet it was perfect, complete, exact. The crew stared at the code in silence, not speaking as fear crept into their bones, because it wasn't just a signal, it was a warning, and they knew it. Then the signal changed again, and an image appeared, a dark ship sliding from the shadows, no lights, no sound, no known markings, its shape wrong somehow, with sharp curves and angles that looked alive. The crew backed away from the screen without knowing why, hearts pounding and minds racing with one unspoken word. Human. The commander of the station, an old Varnak with silver horns and tired eyes, tried to call for help, but the comms were down and the backup relay just sparked with static. He tried to activate the emergency beacon, but the system rejected his code, as if someone had already overridden the station's access. Doors locked, screens went black, and the temperature dropped further. Frost began forming on the walls, and the crew could hear something moving in the lower levels, a soft metallic scraping echoing through the vents and halls, too slow for a machine, too steady for an animal. Then the lights returned all at once, and in the center of the main screen a face appeared. It was human, pale, calm, with dark eyes that held no hate, no joy, only silence. Behind him, the dark interior of the strange ship glowed, with dull red lights flickering like coals in a dead fire. He spoke only once, and his voice carried across every room in the station, even the ones without speakers, and even into the minds of those who covered their ears with fear. He said only this: "We never left." Then the image vanished, and the screen shattered from the inside, sending shards of glass across the room as the crew dove for cover. Alarms finally sounded, but not from their own system. It was from outside, a fleet-wide ping echoing across the sector, bouncing from relay to relay using ancient human satellites thought long dead. Hundreds of stations, ships, and listening posts all received the same signal at once, and every single one paused their operations to listen, even those that mocked the stories, even those that thought humanity was a myth of old war legends, even those who had never seen a real human in their lives. On the Galactic Council floor, reports came pouring in with red tags and emergency seals normally reserved for galaxy-level threats. The council chamber filled with noise and blinking alerts as delegates shouted over one another demanding answers, but no one had them, not yet. The head of the Security Council, a cold-blooded Shari named Vesk, slammed his clawed hand on the table and demanded silence, then ordered all communications toward the outer rim to be restricted until the situation was understood. He authorized patrol fleets to be sent to the region with full scan and strike permissions. But not everyone agreed. The representative of the Terek stood slowly, his scaled body covered in ceremonial armor, older than most council members, and his voice low and calm. He warned against quick action, reminding them all what happened the last time the galaxy underestimated human nature. He told them that this was not an invasion, it was not conquest, it was something worse. It was revenge. In a hidden room deep within the Council's intelligence archives, a lone analyst replayed the human message over and over, isolating fragments, decoding layered frequencies hidden beneath the words, and what he found chilled his blood. Each layer revealed names, places, events, dates, all connected to human tragedies long buried and erased from history. These humans had not forgotten, and more terrifying, they had learned, they had evolved, they had grown silent not out of weakness, but out of calculation. Every insult recorded, every death remembered, every enemy marked. And now they were moving. Meanwhile, the scout station that first received the signal was silent. No word, no sound, no distress beacon. When a patrol ship finally arrived, it found the station empty, power offline, and the walls etched with deep lines carved into metal like claws or blades had dragged across them again and again. At the center of the command deck, a single sentence was written in human language, burned into the floor with something hot enough to melt alloy. "We are watching." The Galactic Council began to split, not just in opinion, but in fear. Some races wanted to open talks, others demanded war plans and defense grids to be activated across major worlds, but no one knew where the humans were, or how many there were, or even what they wanted beyond the silence. But deep in the core of the old Earth system, beneath the radiation and ash that covered the forgotten planet, something had awakened. Machines once thought lost, satellites that still orbited and whispered to each other in binary pulses, transmitting silent data across a hidden human network that reached farther than anyone expected. Across distant colonies, those with human ancestry began to disappear, not killed, not harmed, simply gone, as if called back by some silent voice, some blood-deep signal that pulled them away and left only silence behind. No one could explain it. No one could stop it. And as the galaxy watched, confused and afraid, another signal went out, this one shorter, simpler, not encrypted, not hidden, broadcast across all frequencies, to all species, in all languages, a message from nowhere, yet everywhere. We were mocked, we were broken, we were erased. Now we remember, now we return. The council chamber was no longer calm, no longer filled with laughter, no longer full of proud, alien voices mocking humans as they once did, because now fear had returned like a dark storm that no one could stop, and even the most powerful voices sat in silence, staring at the red warning lights that blinked like a heartbeat in the dark. A transmission had just arrived, not a signal from deep space or some random pirate, but from a listening post hidden in orbit around a dying gas giant. The message was broken and full of static, but one thing was clear: the voice that screamed at the end of the broadcast was not alien, it was human, and it was not just fear in the scream, it was rage. Commander Czar of the Krail Dominion slammed his fist on the table. His species feared no one, not even the old human fleets of long ago. But even his voice shook as he spoke, demanding answers, demanding actions, demanding fleets be sent into the void to crush whatever this was. Before it grew stronger, but no one moved, no one agreed, because no one knew where to strike. Across the stars, strange things began to happen on colony worlds far from the core lights in the sky. Strange storms that came from nowhere, equipment malfunctioning without cause, whispers at night of shadows moving without sound. And then people began to vanish, not just humans, but aliens too, especially those with history against Earth, those who once fought in the old war, those who gave orders to destroy cities, those who celebrated when Earth was declared silent. On one mining planet, a crew found a door deep underground, one that had not been there the day before. It was smooth black metal with no seams or handles, yet it opened when touched. Inside were walls of silver machines humming with energy symbols across the panels that no one could read, but one word kept flashing over and over in every language known and unknown: awakening. That same day, the mining colony went silent. No ships came out, no messages got through. Rescue teams sent to investigate returned in panic, eyes wide with terror. Some screaming, some silent, none willing to speak of what they saw, but all saying the same thing over and over: they are back, and they are not human anymore. In the Council Intelligence Wing, a young analyst named Trian found a pattern in the chaos. Every signal, every disappearance, every ghost ship, they all followed a path, a spiral that slowly moved inward toward the core systems, toward the heart of the Council worlds. He presented his findings to his superiors, but was told to stay quiet, told not to spread fear, told this was still a rumor, still a ghost. But Trian did not listen. He sent the report to every independent station, every colony leader, every fringe world. And within hours, panic began to grow because everyone now saw the same truth: something was moving, and it was getting closer. and no one had the power to stop it not yet. On a distant moon, once used as a human research station, now abandoned and buried beneath ice, a group of scavengers found something they should not have: a chamber still powered, still warm, deep below the frozen surface, filled with cryopods, holding soldiers with armor marked in the flag of Earth, their bodies still perfect, their minds still alive, their orders still active, and above the chamber on the wall, a single sentence burned in red light: "Do not wake unless called." And someone had called. One by one, the pods opened, and the scavengers fled in fear as the humans awoke, eyes opening in silence, weapons still on their backs, calm and cold and focused. They did not speak, they did not question. They simply walked out into the snow and vanished into the white winds, as if they knew exactly where to go. Back at the council, the arguments had turned into shouts, threats, accusations. Some species blamed the humans, some blamed each other, some demanded peace, and others demanded war. But none noticed when the lights flickered, when the walls vibrated, when the temperature dropped ever so slightly. Then, without warning, all screens went black, and a symbol appeared across every display, a spiral of stars wrapping around a burning sun, and beneath it one phrase written in simple letters: "We waited, we watched, we warned." The spiral began to spin slowly at first, then faster as the lights dimmed, and then a new voice filled the chamber, not loud, not angry, but calm and full of something worse than hate, something colder, something final. "You forgot what we were, you laughed at our pain, you erased our name. But we never forgot, we never forgave, and now the stars will remember." And then silence. Across the galaxy, hundreds of military satellites turned from their idle positions to face inward to the core planets, all at once, each of them now active, each of them once thought disabled or destroyed long ago, and all of them built by humans in the last war, silent weapons of last resort, waiting in the dark for one signal. That signal had come. The council ordered immediate lockdowns, but systems failed, security broke, communications jammed, not by force, but by something inside, something already there, something human. In the outer rim, a fleet of unknown ships emerged from a gas cloud, black and silent, no lights, no windows, no markings, moving in perfect unison, faster than anything recorded before, and at their center, a massive vessel shaped like a blade, its surface shifting like liquid metal, and on its hull the symbol of Earth glowing red in the dark. They spoke only once. "We are not here to ask, we are not here to talk, we are here to remind you what you buried." And then they vanished again into the dark. But the message had been sent, the warning had been delivered, and every world in the galaxy now knew that something terrible had returned, not just humanity, but something else, something born from pain and silence, and time, something forged in loss and sharpened by betrayal. And deep in the cold heart of old Earth, beneath the ash and ruins, a single machine blinked for the first time in centuries, a beacon that had been quiet, now humming with life, once more waiting for the final key, the final order, and it was almost time. The silence in the council chamber felt heavy, like gravity had doubled, pressing on every chest and freezing every thought, because now they all understood what had returned: not ghosts, not myths, but the forgotten storm that once shook the stars. And it had not forgotten them, not their laughter, not their cruelty, not their pride. And now it was moving with purpose, with memory, with fire in its veins. On the outer edge of the Scylla belt, a convoy of merchant ships disappeared without a sound, no distress call, no warning, just silence. And later, when a scout vessel found the wreckage, it was not scattered or burned, it was neatly stacked ship pieces placed in a circle, floating in zero gravity, and carved into the hull of each one a message left in dozens of alien tongues: "We do not forget." The council finally agreed to send fleets into the dark zones full of uncertainty and fear, where signals had stopped and ships had vanished. But the fleets found nothing, only ruins and silence and trails that led nowhere, like someone was always one step ahead, like the ghosts were watching and waiting and testing the will of those who once claimed the stars. Meanwhile, whispers began to rise on old human colonies, those long ignored and pushed aside by the council, strange visitors seen at night, people who spoke few words but walked like warriors and asked quiet questions about names and deeds and war. And when they left, strange marks were found burned into the ground, the shape of a spiral wrapped around a burning flame. Some colonies welcomed them, gave food and shelter and respect, and in return the strangers whispered truths, secrets of the past, hidden things the council had buried, stories of betrayal and weapons, and a final order buried deep under Earth's crust, sealed away after the last war, never spoken, never shared, but now remembered. One of the spiral ships appeared near the moon of Kalros, a world ruled by one of the Council's oldest families, the Varnok, who once led the charge to wipe out Earth and turn its cities into ash. When the ship arrived, the sky darkened, not with weapons, but with shadow, and sung a low vibration that made every machine stop, every screen fade, every light flicker, and then a voice echoed across the entire planet, not through speakers, but through thought. "We are the silence you gave us, we are the fire you feared." The Varnok fleet responded with aggression, their ships rising from the surface like claws reaching for prey. But before the first shot could be fired, every control panel died, every weapon arm froze, and every pilot felt a chill deep in their bones, as if something had looked at them and judged them and found them small. When the spiral ship left, nothing was destroyed, no lives were taken, but above the Capitol Tower, one word was burned into the clouds with heat and lightning. Remember. The council held emergency meetings full of fear and blame, accusing each other of hiding truths, of awakening human weapons, of feeding the storm that now circled them like a predator. And in the chaos, one race stood up and confessed. The Rothar, small, quiet beings who once served as engineers during the war, revealed a secret: their ancestors had kept a map, a code left behind by humans during their final retreat, carved into a vault inside a forgotten moon. The code was not coordinates, not a weapon, not a trap. It was a list of names, leaders, officers, commanders, and soldiers from every race who had played a role in Earth's fall, and beside each name, a symbol marked in red, a judgment, unfinished, a warning, unanswered. And now, one by one, those names were vanishing from their homes, their palaces, their warships. Some found, turned to dust, others simply gone, without trace, no signs of entry, no sounds, no struggle, just clothes left behind, and in their place, small black spirals drawn in ash. On the world of Uranak, a once powerful general, now old and weak, awoke to find his home surrounded by figures in armor darker than space, their faces hidden, their eyes glowing with cold light. He begged for mercy, said the war was long ago, said he was only following orders, but the figures said nothing, only raised one hand, as if to weigh his soul, and then the light vanished, and he was no more. The council was breaking apart. Species once allied now blamed each other, old enemies forged temporary pacts to survive, while entire sectors went dark from fear, from panic, from the growing belief that nothing could stop what was coming. On Earth, beneath layers of ash and metal and broken stone, the old machine kept pulsing, its signal reaching further, its code opening doors long sealed. And across the galaxy, old satellites awakened one by one, ancient Earth tech long thought dead, now alive, relaying messages across stars, messages only one kind could read. They are ready. Back in the council, a young archivist found something buried in old files, a human document never translated because it was considered corrupted, but now with new tech it came alive, showing a message left by Earth's final commander, General Kale, a man never captured, never seen again. After the war, his face calm, his voice steady, he spoke of silence, of memory, of patience. "We are not gone, we are waiting, and when the stars forget, we will remind them. And when they mock, we will teach them. And when they break what little piece we left, we will show them who we are." Then the screen faded, and the archivist sat frozen, because behind the general something was visible, rows and rows of frozen soldiers, machines of war, sleeping in ice and flame, and behind them a spiral spinning slowly like a heartbeat. Now the galaxy knew it was not pirates, not rebels, not ghosts, but humanity reborn, reshaped, and returned not as conquerors, but as a reckoning, not to rule, but to remember and remind, and if needed to burn the sky, to write their pain into every world that laughed. And the last thing the archivist saw before the lights went out was a final line of code blinking on his screen, written in ancient Earth script, a phrase now whispered across every world that once called humans weak. "We have awakened." Across the stars, whispers turned into storms as fear spread faster than light, and even the strongest fleets began to crack under the weight of old sins returning, because the humans were not just back, they were changing the game, rewriting the rules, and reshaping the balance of power without firing a single beam or launching a single strike. In the shadow sectors long left forgotten by the council, mining colonies began to vanish. Workers sent distress signals, then silence, then nothing. And when patrol ships arrived, they found only symbols etched into stone spirals within spirals, always at the center, a single name, written in ancient human script, the name of a colony, or a general, or a city that once stood against Earth. On the world of Zelther, where alien scientists once studied human captives for decades, a massive structure appeared overnight, dark metal and humming energy rising from the ground like it had been buried for centuries, and the moment it activated, the planet's skies turned red and magnetic storms shut down all technology, and a single message pulsed across every screen in one voice. Do you remember their screams? The Council sent their finest warrior fleet to Zelther, over 300 warships led by Admiral Thurex, a veteran known for his victories against human forces during the last war. But when they reached the system, only empty space greeted them. No enemy, no battle, just a single floating object, a sphere covered in carvings. And when they scanned it, their systems collapsed, and every ship went dark, leaving them drifting alone in space, helpless. 1 week later, only one ship returned to Council space, and it carried no crew, no power, no answers, only the same carved spiral across its hull, glowing with silent fire. And the council chambers fell into chaos as arguments exploded and fear tore apart alliances that had lasted for centuries. Some species demanded peace talks, even though humans had sent no diplomats, no words, no demands. Others called for war, though they had no target to strike, no planet to aim, for only shadows and silence, and cold revenge that came without warning. A rogue faction of the Zarn Collective launched an attack on one of the spiral ships near the edge of the Black Shroud Nebula. Their missile struck true, or so they thought, until the ship seemed to phase through space itself, vanishing and reappearing beside their command vessel, and in a single breath the entire fleet vanished, not destroyed, just gone. No wreckage, no fire, only silence, and the echo of human voices singing through the comms, a song from Earth lost to time and sorrow. Meanwhile, scattered colonies of human descendants, once weak and forgotten, began to rise again, not with armies, but with knowledge, as the spiral emissaries visited them, teaching them secrets once forbidden, showing them how to awaken what slept in their blood, how to channel memories buried deep within the soul of their kind. One such colony on the moon of Dareth uncovered a vault hidden beneath ancient stone, a vault sealed with human DNA, and inside were weapons not of destruction, but of memory machines that could replay moments from the war, the cruelty, the betrayal, the screams of the innocent, and the silence of the brave. And they broadcast these memories across space for all species to see, unedited, raw, and impossible to deny. Children on distant worlds watched as their ancestors unleashed horror on Earth, laughing, while cities burned, torturing prisoners, while cameras rolled, and smiling as the last message from Earth begged for peace, not surrender, not fear, just peace. And the children cried, while the elders looked away, unable to face the truth now spreading like wildfire. Within the core of the galaxy, on the diplomatic moon of Valantra, where all races once gathered for peace summits, a new figure appeared, uninvited, cloaked in black, with eyes like dying stars, walking through crowds as silence followed. And when the guards moved to stop them, they vanished, reappearing behind the council leaders, whispering one word into each of their minds: accountability. Then they were gone, and in their place a spiral burned into the floor, not carved, not drawn, but fused into the stone, as if the heat of a sun had etched it there in seconds. And from that moment, none of the council leaders could sleep, because in their dreams they saw faces of humans they once condemned, faces that stared with sorrow, not rage, and asked only why. The spiral fleet grew larger as more ships appeared from nowhere, vessels designed like living things, blending metal and organic shapes, powered by unknown energy and guided by silence and memory. And every time one appeared, a name vanished from the council records, a name tied to old crimes, to old wars, to old wounds. Yet despite all this, no declaration of war ever came from the humans, no voice, no leader, only actions, only silence, and the spiral that followed like a trail of judgment across the stars. On the council homeworld of Threxos, panic reached its peak when an ancient statue was found replaced overnight with a human figure carved in crystal, arms open, eyes closed, and beneath it a plaque with one phrase written in all known languages. "We gave you peace, you gave us fire now. We return not for war, but for truth." Soon even the most powerful species began to plead for dialogue, begging for anyone to speak, for the humans to open talks, to find a way out of the growing storm. But there was no response, only the steady pulse of spiral ships drifting across systems, watching, recording, judging. Then one day, something changed. A new signal began broadcasting from the edge of the galaxy, a location long considered unreachable, a black zone filled with debris and dead suns. And within that void, something had awakened, something massive, something ancient. And the signal spoke not in words, but in pulse and pattern and memory. And those who listened wept without knowing why. It was the heart of Earth reborn, not as a planet, not as a world, but as a vessel, a city of stars forged from loss and patience, carrying the weight of every human soul that ever suffered, and every spark that ever refused to die. And now, it was moving not fast, not slow, but steady like a storm rolling across space, with one final message embedded deep within its signal, repeating again and again like a promise carved into eternity. "We are not here to destroy, we are here to be remembered." The stars above the council systems had never looked so quiet, yet the silence was loud like a scream without sound, because the heart of Earth was moving, and no one could stop it, not with weapons, not with words, not even with surrender, as many now whispered behind closed doors. The spiral fleet had reached every corner of the known galaxy, not attacking, not demanding, only watching. And wherever they appeared, truths were revealed, messages were shown, old war footage rediscovered, hidden records decrypted and sent to public networks, while the citizens of many species began to question everything they had been told about the past, about humans, about what really happened during the last war. Even the Council's oldest allies began to fracture inside their own governments, because young voices now rose louder than the old, and those who once cheered for the fall of Earth now begged for forgiveness, while others feared they were too late to ask. On the planet of Varies, an old historian named Urul, who once taught that humans were monsters, stood before his students and showed them a new lesson, one filled with tears and silence, as he played a recovered video of a human mother shielding her child during the final bombardment of a human city, and Urul whispered to the class that he was wrong and always had been. Across the stars, monuments were built not by humans, but by aliens, carved from stone and crystal, with names of human colonies that once stood proud and strong, and then fell to fire and betrayal, because guilt had begun to grow across the galaxy, a quiet sickness that no medicine could cure. Still, the humans gave no sign of peace talks, no ambassador, no message, only the steady beat of spiral ships moving through space like a silent army of memory. And as they moved, they awakened something buried, something forgotten, something older than even the war. In the ice rings of the Draven sector, a black vault opened, a vault no one remembered building, and inside floated spheres of ancient code written in human script, far more advanced than any current tech. And when decoded, they revealed visions not of destruction, but of hope, blueprints for healing dying planets, for purifying toxic oceans, for repairing broken DNA across species, and the message was clear. We tried to give this to you before the war. Now the Council was no longer leading, but chasing, trying to respond to events already set in motion, and some members resigned, others disappeared, while a few tried to gather their people for an escape, thinking they could run from the judgment that followed. But there was nowhere to run. On the rogue moon of Talos, a group of spiral ships hovered above an old alien prison where thousands of human prisoners once died decades ago, and the entire moon shook as the ships released a pulse into the ground, revealing bones buried deep below, marked with scars of torture and pain, and the ground itself rose, as if rejecting the horror once committed upon it, and the spiral burned into its surface, became a grave marker for all to see. In the shadows of the galaxy's core, a voice finally spoke, a human voice, not from a ship, not from a transmission, but from a dream shared across 1,000 minds at once, speaking the same words over and over with calm sorrow and steady pain. "We never wanted war, we wanted peace, we begged for it, and you laughed, so we vanished, but not in defeat, we vanished in waiting." That same voice appeared again within the dreams of the Council leaders, showing them not death, not fire, But images of children, crying images of books burning, of oceans poisoned, of cities shattered, and always the spiral, turning slowly like time itself, refusing to be erased. A faction of younger alien leaders begged for unity, forming what they called the Spiral Alliance, hoping to reach out with truth and apology and to open a path forward. And for a moment, hope flickered like a distant star, because a small human ship finally responded to a signal, not with words, but with presence. The ship landed on the neutral moon of Ilos, where hundreds waited, and from its door stepped, not a warrior, not a soldier, but a child, a human girl no more than 10, wearing a simple white robe and holding nothing but a crystal sphere that pulsed with light and memory. She walked in silence through the crowd, not afraid, not angry, only sad, and when she placed the sphere at the center of the summit, it opened and showed a memory of Earth before the war, a planet full of art and music, of science and laughter, of kindness, shared even with alien visitors who once called Earth a second home. Tears fell freely across many faces, alien and human descendant alike, and for the first time the spiral changed. It became brighter, its lines shifting slightly, no longer a symbol of sorrow, but of something more, something new. The child spoke only once, her voice soft but strong. "We do not seek revenge, we seek truth, and we offer it to all who will see." Then she left, and the ship vanished into the stars. From that moment, the galaxy began to turn, not with speed, but with certainty, and the old powers crumbled, while new bonds began to form, and the spiral ships continued to watch, still silent, still judging, but also guiding. In the deepest sector of the black void, the heart of Earth opened at last, revealing not a fleet, not a weapon, but a city of light orbiting an artificial sun filled with voices and dreams and memories of what could have been and what might still be. And everywhere the spiral began to appear, not just on ships or walls, but in art and stories and songs whispered across species, like a reminder that history cannot be buried and that the past always returns. But even then, the humans did not come forth as rulers or saviors or destroyers. They remained watchers, they remained silent, they remained patient, because their time was no longer about survival or vengeance, but about truth. And truth had finally come. The galaxy had changed in ways no one thought possible, and yet the humans still remained in the shadows, not silent, not gone, but watching, always watching, with eyes that saw everything from the smallest cruelty to the greatest act of kindness, and they judged not with rage, but with memory and the weight of what was lost. The old leaders of the Galactic Council now stood in ruins, not just their halls and chambers, but their legacies shattered like glass beneath the boots of a truth too powerful to deny, and the spiral burned into every sky, reminded them daily of the voices they ignored, the cries they silenced, the pleas they mocked. From one end of the stars to the other, new voices rose, calling for unity, for remembrance, for a path forward that did not forget the past, but carried its lessons with honor. And in this new dawn, humans became something more than a name, more than a warning, more than a forgotten story. They became a mirror. On the world of Sarah, hundreds gathered around a monument made of metal and stone, shaped in the form of an open hand, and each finger bore the names of fallen human colonies, carved deep by those who once cheered their fall and now wept in regret as they placed flowers or offerings beneath the reaching hand. In the far sector of Draken Prime, an alien girl stood before a crowd holding a spiral-shaped flag, not in fear, but in hope, and she read aloud the final speech of a human teacher who died trying to protect the students from a bombing, a speech once erased from records now heard by billions. His words were simple, and they echoed across the stars, through broadcasts, through dreams, through shared memories, across species and bloodlines. Kindness is not weakness, and love is not surrender, and we will rise again, not in fire, but in truth. The Spiral Alliance had grown beyond expectation, now including dozens of species once divided by fear and lies, and as they built bridges where walls once stood, they asked for one final gesture from the humans, one meeting, one voice, one sign, that peace was possible. They got their answer. On the old moon of Pellis, where the last human fleet once fell, a gate opened, not mechanical, not technological, but organic and glowing, as if alive, and through it stepped figures in robes of light, their eyes calm, their presence strong. And though they looked human, something about them felt older, as if they carried the memory of Earth within their very bones. They were not soldiers, they were not rulers. They were keepers of memory. And as they stood before the gathered species, they spoke not to command, but to share, and the words they gave would be carved into crystal and sent to every world. We are not here to conquer, we are not here to destroy, we are here because truth must be known and peace must be chosen, not given. And if you walk with us, you walk not behind, not ahead, but beside. From that moment, the spiral became more than a symbol. It became a path, and worlds once broken by war, now open schools where humans were honored, and old human songs were taught to alien children, whose voices carried melodies once feared, now beloved. In the shadow systems where the last battles were fought, memorial lights floated through the darkness, each one shaped like a spiral, each one holding the name of a life lost, and they drifted in silence, glowing softly as they passed planets and stars, and even those who once hated humanity now paused to bow their heads in respect. But still some asked, what now? Would the humans return to rule? Would they demand tribute or power? Would they rebuild Earth as it was, or create something new? The answer came not in words, but in vision. At the heart of the spiral network, in a system untouched by war, a world began to form, not built by machines, not mined or colonized, but grown through harmony between nature and technology, and it was named Solara, not Earth, not a rebirth, but a beginning. On Solara, species walked together without fear, without chains, without shame, and among them humans walked not as ghosts or myths, but as equals, and their children laughed with alien children, and their hands built towers not for war, but for stars and learning and healing. From Solara, a final message was sent to every corner of the galaxy, a message written in simple words, spoken in every known tongue, and understood not by mind alone, but by heart. The past is not forgotten, the pain is not erased, but we choose to rise, and in rising we offer our hand, not as masters, not as martyrs, but as friends. And in the skies above every world the spiral turned once more glowing bright for a single day, as if to say the journey is not over, but the darkness is behind us, and the stars ahead are ours to share. And so the universe remembered, not the moment Earth fell, but the moment it rose again, not in fire, but in forgiveness,